Everybody wants a good deal on a car, but in today's market, you're pretty much better off praying that your parents stop watching controversial news and actually have like an uplifting conversation once in their life, okay? I know the world is bad. You don't have to explain to me yet again for another reason why the world is bad. I get it. I just don't want to waste my energy, and like already it's fleeting at this time, on something that I can't control. Instead, it's easier to try and find cars to have fun with that may be within a budget that's too small. Like you want to have a supercar, but you got $14 until you see the words salvaged or rebuilt and like the Spider-Man hairs start to stick up and you're wondering if it's even worth it because everybody would tell you that it's the most terrible decision you could possibly make next to putting cheese on broccoli. I'm Alex Martini with 2 underscores. Okay, cheese on broccoli makes it unhealthy and therefore it's a waste of time. And today we're gonna be talking about why salvage or rebuilt title cars actually maybe aren't that bad and try to turn the whole concept a bit on its head. Now let me know if you've bought a rebuilt or salvage car before and what your experience with it was below. I'm still responding to every single comment and it helps me build out future episodes because I can get some ideas on what you'd like me to talk about next. You can sub if you want to help support the old adventure. Otherwise, you can pick up one of these new t-shirts that we have on alexmartini.net. It's a little bit more expensive, but the quality is higher because I don't want to just make junky t-shirts. So I'm sorry, kind of, but not really. Anyway, let's get into it a little bit. Taking it back to like 2020, you know, flipping rebuilt cars was all the rage, all right? It was awesome. It was like Bop-Its of 2012.
Bop it, twist it, pull it, bend it, flip it, extend it.
But anyway, no one had anything better to do, and before the market got injected by steroids and made everything impossible to buy, you could actually go out there and find some of these rebuilt cars like Ferraris and Porsches and BRZs and for like 50 to 65-ish% less than a clean title equivalent, which was a pretty good deal because by the time you actually went out there and looked on YouTube, you could see a lot of cool people doing it. But then you type in salvage cars, good idea, and pretty much everybody on Google would politely tell you to kindly off. They'll tell you that it's dangerous, it's unsafe, it's not a good idea. But then you're gonna go right back to YouTube right after that and watch another Rich Rebuilds video, another Junior Garage, another Sam Crack, or some sort of performance rebuild video, and you'd be like, you know what? Maybe I want to rebuild a GTR in 10 minutes. Now, Nissan GTRs in general are a pretty common pick for a salvage or rebuilt title pickup. Most commonly, these cars feature some sort of collision damage because they were well produced, didn't really have any massive disastrous problems or production errors outside of the glass transmission from 09 to 12 and a couple other knickknacks, but for the most part, the cars themselves were driven like a race car by non-race car professionals. Now, keeping an eye out for what damage codes could be present on cars, specifically as when you're looking at rebuilt or salvage title cars, are super important. Now, the damage codes could be present on cars like these that are pretty much mass-produced, higher horsepower engines, and maybe might not be a car that you'd want the normal commuter to have access to, and usually sits around that 50K range, at least, you know, 2020 prices, was a really strong place to start because you see, it opened yourself up to a lot of different vehicles. GTRs and cars like them, like the Hellcat, the Camaro, Mustang, Corvette, 370Z, can be great cars to pick up. And if you're learning to become more mechanically inclined and have access to potentially a long-term lift and have another mode of transportation, these cars are great cars to pick up. Pair these sort of cars up with some rear end damage that's non-frame rail intensive, or maybe it has a vandalism as its primary damage code, and you'll likely end up with a car that has the bones to come back to life. Those damage codes though can really help figure out what's going on with the car. Now here's why I say that, because on front engine cars, I try to look for damage codes that are either aesthetic or rear end damage, kind of avoids, you know, the motor bit, which is a little bit pricey. And you'd be shocked at what insurance companies will total cars out for. A lot of things like those expensive taillights, wing wiring, carbon kits that come on these cars from OEM are some of the main reasons that these cars can get totaled out because of the replacement cost of them. And most of the time, insurance companies are right, but you're an enthusiast looking for a deal, all right? You're not a middle-aged dad looking for a Pacifica. So as long as you look carefully at the car's photos and the damage declared, it can tell a story. Now, people may claim that there's a lot of people on sites like IAAI or Copart that are trying to make a buck. Maybe you're trying to find a new Supra with some rear end damage and you come across one that looks like it's well put together. Outside of the fact there's probably some like panel gaps and it kind of looks like they may have made a mistake. You know, maybe a runs and starts title, but it's just, you know, a little ugly. That's why they got rid of it. Now, that's a red flag, all right? Get your red flags here, right now, $2 for a buck, but It's not a good idea. Like, didn't Mama ever tell you that if a deal sounds too good to be true, it probably is? It is so much the case if you're looking at salvage and rebuild titles. The key here, don't be naive. You're playing against insurance companies, dealerships, and repair shops that need to make a buck, and they're trying everything they can to minimize their risk so that somebody like you can pick up a car that they definitely shouldn't. Now, the likelihood that the car was bought, zip tied back together, and still features a rear end that's kinked 30 degrees is probably 95% the case on any car that looks like it's too good to be true. Now, a great way to see what cars used to look like or understand the full scope is to get an account that allows you to search for the car using the entire VIN. A lot of times you'll see pre-existing listings of the car that were either days, weeks, or months ago that were the original damaged car without all the makeup that was put on it. A lot of times these old photos also include a lot of other scary photos, some true damage, and key information that you need to understand just what you're buying, which also gives you a little bit more history, and those primary damage codes can also change with it. The old listing may have had that primary damage code as fire, but when they ripped out the interior and put some POR 15 on the inside, now they're trying to pass it off as miscellaneous or theft, it can leave you wondering what the heck happened. And if you know the history, it can steer you away from really bad cars. Now, IAAI and Copart try to protect against like that sort of behavior because technically I think it's frowned upon, but with how much volume there is on the platforms, they can't catch it all. Now, I have a general tendency, again, to look and try and find all past history, find the VIN, find the original listing, and then scour the forums to see if the car was somewhere before, not just in damage, but just in general, because a lot of times, specifically with supercars, they do share their VIN in some places. For instance, when I bought my 430, I actually found the original owner of the car. The person who damaged it, which was that owner, the shop that bought it, contacted them too, the new owner that was from the shop that hit a pole in the same exact spot from the first accident the second time, and then the listing that I was going to buy. By the time I had purchased it, I was able to fill in the holes that Carfax just didn't have, and I was using nothing more than just the VIN, a little bit of forums, and maybe a drink or two. No matter what you buy, doing research can help you save tens of thousands of dollars, and that's a good thing, specifically if you know what you're looking for. But Alex, what about the safety? All right, sure, look at cars with rollover damage or undercarriage damage, and you may find yourself paying double to repair the car for what you bought 50% off for, which in this case is completely useless because you are going to mess something up 100% of the time. But people that are looking to buy a salvage car to rebuild is not the, like, are you looking for a salvage car to rebuild or a rebuilt title car wondering if you're able to resell it? Like, you're not looking at the cars the same way. The everyday consumer is looking at very specific things when they're trying to buy a car. And if you're trying to buy a supercar at half off, you're not the same person, okay? Now, there's typically 3 reasons you want to buy a salvaged or rebuilt car. And remember, salvaged is the one that's illegal to drive. It's pretty much the pre-damaged version, whereas the rebuilt title cars are the ones that have been repaired post-total, and they've been approved for road use again. So it's important that you understand those 2 things. Now, they want access to a car that outperforms what their wallet can afford. That's usually the #1 case. And if that's the case, you're gonna wanna take your total car budget and divide it by 2. Look at that price range. And if you still can't get what you want, you're gonna need to wait 3 months and try again, because whatever you spend on the car, you're probably gonna spend that same amount in repair. Now, if they want an exotic car, a rare car, and they don't really care about the history, these people, this is the second group, because these people aren't gonna be focused on resale or dealership deals. And in all honesty, the cars aren't gonna be driven enough to probably have any sort of detrimental impact on their finances or their resale value. The next person that buys this car that's been bashed up a couple, 2-3 times is the same exact type of enthusiast that currently already owns it. It's like selling an old VW to another VW enthusiast. They just know what they're getting into, and that's okay. They aren't trying to sell a car to a museum, and these groups of people typically aren't trying to either. Now, the third reason would probably be because they want a missile of some sort. They're drifting it, they're dragging it, autocross or HPD, and if that's the case, then a rebuilt car is almost freaking perfect, because you're gonna be beating the ever-living crap out of the car anyway. In fact, you'll see track rats with more owners than titles than you could possibly imagine, and it doesn't matter because the purpose of it is just to get around Road America as fast as you possibly can and not brag about having a title at a car show, because nobody cares. All right, everybody's just scared shitless of Mazda Miatas at Road America, and that's just something that you have to put up with. Now, buying a salvaged car takes a mechanical skill that you or your close friend group needs to have. You also need to understand how to hold the line and be patient, because most mistakes that happen in this market and when you buy one of these cars happen because people were impatient or because they were manipulated without looking at the details of the entire car. Rebuilt cars can be the same process. Knowing its history, its rebuild process, and why it was rebuilt will be huge for you to determine if the car is a good pick. Now, if you're looking to get a perfect car that has no issues, that's some sort of diamond in the rough that could basically be resold back at the dealership with any sort of issue, then yeah, a rebuilt title or a salvage car just isn't for you. You're looking to get a deal, and that negotiation has to come from somewhere. It comes from the tarnished title. But if you're an enthusiast that wants to get your hands dirty a bit, learn by drinking water from a fire hose, and can manage yourself to a budget and a plan, picking one up really isn't that bad. You just gotta understand what you're getting yourself into, you know? Friday night flings. They can be dangerous, but they're fun. But what do you think? Would you ever buy a salvage or rebuild car? Let me know below, and of course, don't forget to subscribe. I appreciate all the support and the comments, and we will see you later. Adios.